Hi guys, hope you are well. Episode 8 of The Gloves Are Off with myself, Curtis Woodhouse. Just before I get started, if you could please subscribe to this channel, it'd be much appreciated. I got the statistics through the other day, and 88% of people that viewed my channel were non-subscribers. So if you like the content, subscribe, help it grow, and it'll help me keep doing what I'm doing. So today, I'm going to talk about the question I get asked more than any other question. Wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, people always ask me the same thing all the time. Curtis, why did you quit professional football to be a professional boxer? And it's a complex answer, so you'll have to bear with me a little bit on this one. I kind of have to go back to the start and talk about my football and kind of what led me to be a professional boxer. So I was born in 1980, and I never ever dreamt of being a boxer. I didn't box as an amateur. I just used to be like everyone that was born in the 80s. I used to watch the fights that used to be on ITV at the time. You know, I was brought up watching Frank Bruno, Nigel Benn, Chris Eubank, them guys, Mike Tyson. But I was football crazy, absolutely football crazy. All I remember, like quite a lot of my youth was spent playing football on the crescent that I was brought up on. We all used to play, and I always used to be John Barnes. You know, when I was kind of running with the ball at my feet, in my head, I'd always be going Barnes to Beardsley, back to Barnes, and I used to be John Barnes. And all I ever dreamt of as a kid was playing for Liverpool and playing for England. Like I say, I'm brought up in a place called Driffield, which is in East Yorkshire. Never been to watch Liverpool as a kid, but Liverpool were the best team, so I was a bit of a glory supporter, as we all are as kids, and I supported Liverpool. And yeah, John Barnes was my first ever hero. And to progress a few years, I started to really excel at football, and I realised very early, it's hard for me to tell this story without sounding overly arrogant, but like I promised on this channel, I will only tell the truth or my truth. And from a very, very, very early age, I realised I was really good. Everywhere we went, I was always, if not the best player, one of the best players in our area. And then started going on trials to different clubs, to bigger cities, and thinking, oh God, I'm just from a little town. What am I going to be like once I start mixing with these city boys? And nothing changed, business as usual. I'd always be outperforming a lot of them. So from a very young age, I knew I was going to make it. And like I said, my dream was to play for Liverpool and play for England. That was the only thing that I ever wanted to do. And I finally got my opportunity at 16 years of age to go to Sheffield United to do a YTS. Scholarships, I think they're called now. And I was on £42.50 a week. And we used to get paid monthly. So for a week, I'd be living like a king. And then for 3 weeks, we'd be absolutely brassic, just trying to wing it and get by. But the dream was there to be a professional footballer. And I was very fortunate enough to make my debut for Sheffield United at 17 years of age. And kind of, to quote Mika Richards, burst onto the scene. And became Sheffield United's youngest ever player of the year. A record that still stands today. And later become Sheffield United's youngest ever captain, still a record that still stands today. And my career was flying when I first started, and something came into my life that I'd never experienced before and changed everything really, and it was money. I all of a sudden started earning outrageous amounts of money for somebody so young. I'll do a video another time of about my career earnings as a footballer. It's not as fun talking about it as it is boxing, because boxing, as you can see, my career earnings were not a lot, and people don't mind hearing that. But when I start quoting some of the figures I was earning playing football, it'll probably make you guys hate me a lot more than what you already do. So yeah, we'll save that one for another day. But yeah, money came into my life. And just to go back a little bit, when I first went to Sheffield United, there was nobody hungrier than me. Nobody. You know, I always say all the time, the difference between wanting to be a professional footballer and needing to be. I needed it. I had no plan B, no other options. At the time, my home life was not great. My mum and dad had split up when I was 14, and I'll save that video for another time, but that was a really difficult time in my life. So I kind of realised at a young age that I'm all in here. This is it for me. For me to do anything and make anything of my life, it has to be through football, because I can't do anything else. I left school with 1 GCSE, and that was in PE, and that was about when 80% of it, I think, was practical. So I just winged it just by being a good athlete, really. So yeah, as soon as I got there, I knew, that this was my only option, and I would train hard. I'd be dedicated, live the life. And then, like I said, money came into my life and changed everything. I'd never been around money. I don't know anybody that had any money, and I really struggled and took my eye off the ball massively. And I'd be out partying. I've always had a problem with authority, really. I'll go back to do a video at another time, but from about 14 years of age, my life at home became really hectic, and I was in the house a lot on my own. My mum and dad split up, my mum moved away, and my dad used to work away Monday to Fridays. So on the Monday to Fridays when my dad was away, I was kind of left to my own devices to kind of do whatever I wanted. So kind of dropped out of school at a young age and just survived doing whatever it is that young kids do, really, up to no good, but nothing major. But I'd just do my own thing. And my thing as a young kid was, I've come this far, all this way, on my own. I can't be having like managers and coaches and people like that scream and shout at me and tell me what to do, because I'm here off my own back. So I always struggled with authority. And like I said, when money came into my life, I'd be out all the time, and nobody could tell me what to do. If I wanted to go out on a Friday night for a game Friday, I'd go out, and I don't care what anybody else said. I was just doing me. And I know that sounds ridiculous, and it's easy to look back now as a 42-year-old man to chastise a young 17-year-old kid, what I was then. But I'm just telling you the truth. I'm not bragging about it. I'm not saying I'm proud of it. I'm just telling you the truth. And I was earning ridiculous amounts of money. I could, within reason, do whatever I wanted. And I completely took my eye off the ball. I played for England under 16s, England under 18s, England under 21s. I was only 18 when I played for England under 21s, and some big clubs had come in for me. And I was just doing whatever I wanted. And that doesn't last forever. You can't get away with it forever. And it's something I took into my boxing career, but you can get away with it for a bit, but then in the end, your body will say, whoa, you can't keep doing this to me day in, day out, and then expect me to perform for you on a Saturday. And in the end, my performances went from A1 to poor. My game was built around running, tackling, pressing, energy, so all of a sudden I was mega fit when I was a kid. I could like run all day long for you, and I would tackle, I'd run through brick walls. But all of a sudden, when your fitness isn't there because you've been out 6 of the 7 days, and you've been out drinking and coming in at 4 in the morning and getting up to train at 9 in the morning, that soon is not the case. And my career started to go downhill, and I didn't have the maturity to be able to pull it back together. I didn't. And once I spiraled out of control, the spiral just kept going and going and going. And I could never get out of the tailspin. And slowly but surely, I became nowhere near the player that I was. I went to Birmingham City for £1 million. I was already shot to bits by then. I was on even more money at Birmingham than I was at Sheffield United, probably double. And then we got promoted to the Premier League, so written into my contract was, I think I got like a 50% pay rise on top of that. So I'm earning ridiculous amounts of money. More money just means you can go out more places. And I'd absolutely gone. I was fat, I was overweight, I wasn't fit. And it took probably 75% of my game away. And the worse I was playing, the more I became angry at myself and portrayed that onto other people. You know, every manager I've ever played for, I fell out with. Every one of them. Because I couldn't be managed as a young kid. I was unmanageable. And it's horrible to think of it like that, because, you know, when the kids that I coach now, football, boxing, whatever it is, I always preach to them about being coachable. It's such a massive talent, and if you haven't got it, you're always going to struggle. And back as a young kid, I was unmanageable. And I think a lot of that, and I do a lot of talks at schools and prisons, and I think we are all, to some degree, a product of our environment. And some people shake it off at a later date, some people never do. And I just think my years as a young kid molded my early years as a late teen and into my early 20s. And I had a really combative personality. You know, I'm ready to fight on any subject. You know, that was kind of where I was at as a young kid, and it really it made me difficult in dressing rooms and difficult around management, really. Like I said, I fell out with every manager I ever had. Went to Birmingham City for £1 million, which sounds great, but I was I was finished. And I ended up getting sacked from Birmingham City. I think I was 22 years of age and I got sacked. And then I left Birmingham, and I was out for a bit. I didn't play for a few months, and ended up going to Peterborough United on a free transfer. And again, this sounds ridiculously arrogant, but at Birmingham I was training with top players, and then dropped down to League One with Peterborough United and found it easy in League One. I got Player of the Year for Peterborough, scored a few goals, but it was kind of, and Peterborough's a good club, so this is no disrespect to them at all, but it was kind of at Peterborough United, emotionally, I retired, really. Peterborough was probably the worst moment in time in my football career. I was on one. I was angry times 10, and it was probably not great to be around. For Barry Fry and other people, I must have been very, very difficult and very frustrating. But it was at Peterborough United, I thought to myself, this is not the dream. I'd taken a massive cut in wages. Remember I said to you, my dream was to play for Liverpool in England. And I'm playing for Peterborough United in League One on a Tuesday night, and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, this isn't what I wanted out of my life. Again, and I know this sounds arrogant, I always thought I was going to do something great. I honestly did. I thought I was destined for greatness. I thought I was going to score the winning goal for England in the World Cup final. I thought I was going to win Champions League titles for Liverpool. I thought I was going to be great. Like all young kids, I suppose. But I genuinely thought, I used to envisage it all the time, thinking like I score a winner, the last minute winner for England in the World Cup final, and I've won it, and I'm the captain, and I lift the World Cup up, and that was the dream. I honestly thought that was going to be my life. So I'm looking around on a Tuesday night playing for Peterborough in front of one man and his dog, and became really disappointed in what my life has become, really. And it took me a long, long time to get over the demise of my football career. A big thing for me was to admit and recognise that it was my fault. It was my fault. Nobody messed my career up for me. I messed it up myself. And I think as soon as I processed that, and I started to get older, started to get a little bit more mature, and address things from my past that I felt hindered me, really. And I honestly do feel that, you know, I speak a lot, I do a lot in prisons and a lot in schools, and I see a lot on social media about how people talk about how tough times make people, make them tough and rugged and resilient. It's a load of nonsense. Tough times don't do that. Tough times break more individuals than they make. You get everyone now and again will come through having a horrific background or whatever, or really difficult times, and rise to the top, and everybody looks at them as the one. Yeah, the tough times made him make it. But for that 1%, there's 99% of others that just, it becomes too tough and it breaks them. A lot of kids get broken at a young age, and they have no confidence when they get into young adulthood. They have no self-esteem, no belief. They don't know how to fail and come back because of that, what's being bashed into them at a young age. And I see it all the time. And the young kids that I work with at school become the young men I end up speaking to in prison. And a lot of them follow a similar path, that their childhoods have been really, really difficult and tough, and they've not managed to make it through. It broke them. And like I said, that's 99% of people's stories that have a tough background, really. And like I said, you get the 1% that come through. And it took me a long, long time to process and accept what it is. And up until that point, I would lash out at everybody in football clubs and, like I said, be really, really difficult to manage. I thought I was going to be great, and now look at me. I'm far from great. I'm below average. So that was tough. That was difficult to swallow. So I realised at Peterborough United that I was done. I carried on playing for a bit longer. Hull City came in for me. And Hull City had just been promoted from League 2 to League 1, then from League 1 to the Championship. So it was my last throw of the dice, really. I thought, if I can't get the passion back for the game, playing for my local team, which Hull City are. I live in Hull now. I'm from Driffield, which is about 20 miles from Hull. So Hull are the nearest professional team to where I was from. A lot of my mates used to go and watch them. And I realised if I can't, my old England under-21 manager, Peter Taylor, signed me. And I realised if I can't find that love for it again, it's over. And I knew within probably 2 or 3 weeks of being at Hull City that I was done. I was done. Emotionally, I was done. I was done. Physically, I think I'm 25 at this point. So I'm kind of still coming into my physical peak. But emotionally, I'm done. It's over for me. You know, I'm 25. You know, I'm not going to be, Liverpool aren't going to be signing me anytime soon. And I ain't getting in anybody's World Cup squad. And I realised very early it was over for me. So what am I going to do? I'm 25 years of age. What else am I passionate about? And the answer was not much. But I always liked fighting. Always. And it took me a while to be able to actually say that out loud and not feel like people will think I'm a thug. Because I'm far from it. But I've always enjoyed hand-to-hand combat. It's something that I've been doing from a young age. Like I say, I'm from a place called Driffield. So I was born in 1980, and our next door neighbour but one had a black Labrador called Nigger. So that was the area that I was brought up in. So you better believe I was fighting a hell of a lot. You know, start off with, I'd go home, I'd be crying my eyes out. My dad would be like, "What are you doing? You got to get back out there. Otherwise you'll be running in here every 2 minutes. Get out there and stand your ground and fight your corner." And people will call you that every single day if you don't do something about it. So stand up for yourself. So I did at a young age. And I always say, probably my first 100 fights, probably lost them all. I was always the smallest on our like little estate or whatever. My brother and sister were younger than me, so I didn't really have much backup. But yeah, I'd always be a very good second. You know, I'd always have a go. And as I got older and a bit more developed, I started to pick up the odd win here and there. But I was fighting from a very, very young age. And it was always something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the buzz of it. And I first started having a few little spars when I was at Peterborough United. Barry Fry rang Gary Daru up, who used to be the former featherweight British champion who lives in Peterborough. So I rang Gary up and said, Gary, I've got a kid here. He said, he's a nightmare. He's causing chaos at the football club. Can you help him? Quite likes his boxing. Can he come down and do a bit of pad work with you or whatever? Can you train him for us so he's not coming here and causing mayhem? So Gary said, yeah, no worries. So I met up with Gary, and Gary probably doesn't realise what a huge part he played in my life, because I instantly looked up to Gary, instantly. British champion, fighter. He had my respect straight away. So when I said to you I struggled with authority, all of a sudden I'm now with an authority figure who I respected, because I knew that he could probably beat me up. Well, he definitely could beat me up. So I respected him instantly, and he was a positive role model in my life at that point when I didn't really have many. So Gary played a huge part in inspiring me, really. So I started doing some pads, started doing a bit of pad work with the young kids that he had in the gym that were like 16, 17. I'm 24, 25, I'm a grown man. So I'm like, I mean, some of them are younger than that as well. So I was like, so Gary said to me, do you want to spar one day? And I was like, oh no, I can't work a game on Saturday. So they're only young kids, they'll come in, have a little move about with them, and they'd literally come into the gym, take their school uniforms off. And I remember thinking, bloody hell, I'm only kids, I better go steady. And about 25 nosebleeds later, it really intrigued me. I thought, wow, this is madness. This isn't actually a fight. This is a game of skill. And it got my competitive juices really flowing. Like, how can this guy who's just finished geography, who's 14 years of age, come in and beat me up? And boxing is a game of TIG with your fists. It's about footwork. It's about distance. It's about smell. It's you sense when you're in range. And it really lit a fire underneath me. I'm like, whoa, I need to learn more about this. So that was my first introduction into professional boxing. And I ended up leaving going back to Hull City. I left Hull City. I was there for 6 months. And I decided then and then I was going to become a professional fighter. And I rang Gary Daru up and said, Gary, I'm going to turn pro. And I remember Gary sitting me down in his living room and showed me like 101 worst knockouts or whatever. And said, listen, it's a tough old game. You know, you could be one of these. And I think he was against me turning pro to start off. I had no amateur experience. I probably had 10 spars my whole life, open spars. I had no experience to be throwing away a football career when I'm kind of coming into my peak years. Like I said, mentally, emotionally, I'm finished, I'm done. Should have retired probably 2 or 3 years earlier. But I could still make a hell of a good living out of football. So I think he was quite against me doing it. And I said to Gaz, I said, listen, I'm doing this with or without you. I want to do it with you. But if you say you won't train me and manage me, I'm going to go somewhere else and do it. And I think Gary kind of wanted to be there and to protect me a little bit and decided to train me. So I left Hull City. My last club was Grimsby Town, who was my Russell Slade, who's my old youth team manager. He rang me up when I left Hull and said, listen, I've heard you're retiring. Do you want to come and play for us for the last 6 months of your career? I started with Russ. I owe him so much. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have made it as a professional footballer. He steered me and kept me out of trouble when I was always in trouble. He'd make sure that certain people didn't know I was always in trouble. And Russ looked after me a little bit. So I felt I owed it to him to try and help his team that he managed at the time, Grimsby Town, get promoted. And my last ever game was in the playoff final for Grimsby Town. And we lost on a penalty shootout. And I retired. And I think 10 weeks later, made my professional boxing debut. And I always say, at that time when I was at Peterborough United, was probably the darkest time of my life. And if I'd have bumped into anybody that inspired me, I'd have followed that path. That could have been anyone positive or anybody negative. And I was so grateful that person I bumped into was Gary Daru. And he sent me down the road of inspiring me to actually want to give boxing a go. If it had been a darts player, I'd have tried darts. If it had been a criminal, I might have gone down that route as well. So it just shows the importance of positive role models that young men need in their lives. And mine was Gary Daru. And at 26 years of age, I retired, and that's, in a nutshell, 25 minutes later, why I became a professional fighter. And the rest is history, I suppose. And I've gone on a little bit there, and hopefully I've covered most things. But yeah, when I look back at the end of my career now, I honestly had no idea how hard it was going to be. I'd watched Rocky a few times and I'd seen a few fights, but I didn't understand how difficult it was going to be to be a professional fighter. I had over an 11-year career, and if I had have known, if I know now if I knew then, what I know now, would I have done it? That's such a tough question, you know, because I had some really, really tough times as a boxer, really tough. Would I have done it? I mean, yeah, listen, the answer is yeah, absolutely. When I was 26 years of age, as a professional footballer, from 0 to 26, I'd been arrested 21 times. From 26 to 42, I think I've had a parking ticket maybe. So boxing for me has been an absolute godsend, you know, and I know it's quite a cliche when people say like boxing saved my life. Boxing didn't save my life. I'd have saved my own life because I'd have found a way to be successful in something else, because I've got that arrogance that I always think I'm going to do something great. I really do. Still think it now. You know, I'm training kids now, and I think I might churn out a couple of world champions here. You know, I want to go into football management. You know, I want to go and win the FA Cup. Or I always think I've got something great in me, and I always think I'd have saved my own life somehow. But boxing absolutely changed my life 1,000,000%. Made me a better person. Made me, when I talk about someone who had a problem with discipline, made me more respectful of people. Was that boxing, or was that just evolution of a young man getting older? I don't know. Maybe a bit of both. But yeah, that is in a nutshell the reasons why I retired. And I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say football broke me. It did. It broke me. I went from a kid at 16 with his whole world in front of him to, if I'm honest, if I'd had my time again, I'd have probably retired at 22, 23. I was done. Emotionally done. And yeah, football broke me. I didn't retire till I was 26 because I didn't find what else I wanted to do. I was just hanging around for the sake of hanging around. Yeah, and I met a young man from Peterborough United called Gary Daru, who inspired me to be someone else, do something else in my life, and yeah. But yeah, I've got no shame in saying that football took me a long, long time to get over it. Yeah. It felt like getting a divorce, really, from your wife, someone you loved. And then all of a sudden that thing that you love ends up hating you and you hate it. And it breaks you. And yeah, it definitely broke me. I wasn't emotionally stable enough to be able to deal with the ups and downs of football. I've been through too much too young. I wasn't ready. I needed something a little bit softer. And football's not soft. People think they are. Football's fall on the ground, but the business side of football is brutal. And they will chew you out and spit you out as quick as they can say your name. So don't get that twisted. And I just wasn't emotionally ready to deal with it. So I was out of there. And I found my way back. And like I said to you, I always thought I was going to achieve greatness in football. And I never managed to do it. But whatever anybody tells you, what I achieved to go from football to boxing and to win the British title is great. Won't ever be done again. To play at the level I played at and to win the British title. So as a young kid, I always thought my greatness was going to be Liverpool and England, and it ended up being something completely different. And I preach that to the young kids all the time. Be adaptable, you know, bounce back ability, it's massive. You know, believe in yourself. You know, you really have to do that all the time because nobody else is gonna. And yeah, and I managed to find my way back in a completely different sport, one that I'd never done before, and I found my own path to greatness. So, in a nutshell, guys, that's the story. 30 minutes I've gone on. I apologise, but it's not a quick story for me to tell. So yeah. Just before I go, guys, I'd like to say a big shout out to Frank from Bury. Keep on trucking, mate. Hope you're well. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe and support the channel. Cheers, guys.